What are your best examples of people cheating the system? I'll start. So I work in the luggage claim department for a major airline. All day I get to hear customers yelling and complaining. What I did is borrow one of the wheelchairs from the airport and sit behind my desk all day long. Customers come in all angry, see me in the wheelchair, realize they are about to yell at a guy who is possibly crippled, and all of a sudden they turn into the nicest people. Physically my blood pressure has dropped, and in general I'm in a pretty good mood most of the time. Edit. So my boss will often check the date modified on certain files on our server to see if I have updated or even opened a certain file recently. So I have installed a changer utility that allows me to modify the date modified on any file. This comes in most handy when my boss wants to give me weekend assignments. I just come in on Monday morning and change the date modified to Saturday night, and he thinks I was actually doing something for work on Saturday night. I've actually received a lot of kudos for this. I don't feel bad though, because my boss is a huge dead. I had this meal plan where the school essentially took my actual money and turned it into campus dollars that could only be spent at school dining halls and cafes. I didn't mind so much until the end of the semester when I was informed that any unspent campus dollars would go away. I had more than $100 left and only a day to spend them. Here's what I did. I went to the nicest campus restaurant, the one where you're supposed to take your parents when they come to visit. Basically, a real restaurant with waitstaff that also happened to take campus dollars. I got the most expensive thing on the menu and then called the waiter over. I asked him if I could tip him in campus dollars, and he said yes. I asked him if he would have immediate access to those campus dollars in the form of actual money, and he said yes. So I made him a deal. I gave him a monster tip, and he gave me half of it back in actual money. Many years later, I'm still proud of this. I made a server's day, screwed the man, and got my money back. Whenever people come to the pool where I lifeguard and have guests with them, I always ask them if they live more than 50 miles away. Our policy is guests from more than 50 miles away don't pay guest fees. If they say no, I give them the look and ask them again. They usually say yes after that, saving customers $2 like a boss. One of the best cheats ever. Know how they have the 3-month free premium channel thing when you switch TV providers? You can get that without switching by calling up your provider and asking to speak to a supervisor and spinning a yarn about how company will offer you the premium channels. The supervisor's job is to ensure customer satisfaction, and they get in trouble if people leave the service under their watch. As such, you will often get a price cut or free premium service. Cox Cable, 5 years free HBO, Stars, Cinemax and Showtime. When I was a teenager, I worked at a McDonald's where the beverages were self-serve. We just sold you the cup. Once, on a particularly slow day, when I was the only one at the registers, an older man walked in with an empty gallon of milk carton, walked over to the Coke dispenser, and started to fill. It took a full minute or two, and he actually looked over at me once, where I was watching him utterly fascinated. When he was done, he put the little cap back on, nodded to me, then walked back out to his car. When buying a new car, instead of going to a showroom and haggling with them, go to cars.com, find dealers around you. Ask them for quotes over email. Once they send you quotes over email, edit the price mentioned in the email and forward it to some other dealer. The other dealer will reduce his price below this. Edit that email to reduce the price and send it to the first dealer. Keep doing it. Got $24,000 car for $17,000, all taxes included. Got a negative removed from my credit report. Once you have a negative on your report, it stays on for 7 years. There are exceptions. Write a letter to all 3 agencies telling them that the negative is a mistake and that by law they must investigate it and provide proof of their investigation within 30 days. You can send these letters every 30 days as well. And they must investigate it each time. The agencies don't have the resources to investigate each claim, so they often just remove it. When I wrote my letters, the first 2 agencies removed the negative the first time. The other agency did the investigation and responded saying that it was in fact accurate. I sent the same letter a month later and they dropped it that time. You should use old-fashioned snail mail as it is more difficult to process. That way worked like a charm, and now I have a perfect credit history. I have a complicated cheating the system. On my iPhone, there is a particular app that awards endpoints whenever you do certain things in the app. The first time you open it each day, when you watch one of the news stories, that kind of thing. Well, those endpoints you could trade in later for tons of things, including Amazon gift cards. 5k endpoints was a $5 Amazon gift card. Watching a 10-minute video was worth, in the beginning, about 300 meter points. The trick was that you could drag the bar to the end of the video, and it would still trigger the endpoints. Basically, you could make about $5 a minute the first day they opened it. My buddy and I stayed up super late that night and made several $100s in Amazon gift cards that night, which were just a coupon code you attached to your Amazon account. The next morning they reduced the value from 300 to something like 100 points. Still worth it, in that you could make 1/3 of the money, which was essentially free. The final blow was when they reduced the amount to something like 10 points, then it became too much. In the end, after about a week, we bought 2 high-end gaming computers, parts then assembled, from nearly scratch. We already had a tower and power supply for one, but the other was completely built for free, courtesy this app. Was incredible. I used to work at a restaurant that would track our tip percentage, but not too much else of our activity. The amount of tables we got per night would be based on our tip percentage, and there was also a regional leaderboard. We were allowed to buy food from the restaurant, but we couldn't bring ourselves in, which led me and my friend Jim to our greatest discovery. We would buy a side of mashed potatoes from each other, a $2.00 each side, and pay with a credit card. We would then tip each other $10 to $12, a 500-600% tip. We would do this every so often, not enough to be ridiculous, and within a few months we were the top servers in the entire region, with an average tip percentage of over 30%, thereby granting us some kind words from management and the most tables per night of the whole restaurant. TL. Doctor, paid $14 for a side of mashed potatoes, came out on top. I used to work at Walden Books back in the day. There was a dude who used to routinely come in and buy bargain books. He would then go home and come back another time with the bargain books with the stickers ripped off to return them and claim he didn't have a receipt. We would then have to give him store credit for the price that the books rang up as, always more than the discounted bargain sticker. He would then come back at a later time and use the store credit to buy full priced books. He would then come back one final time and return the books with a receipt for cash. It used to irritate me when he would do this, because I knew what he was doing, and there wasn't anything I could do about it. Interestingly enough, this very same man would become a supervisor of mine at another place I worked at later, and was a pretty cool guy. I never mentioned to him that I knew about his scheme, but even if I told him, he would have given 0f. You know how those sites that you can buy access for 3 months then have to cancel, or they continue to charge you? I went down and spent $50 on an Amex gift card, the kind that is just like a credit card, but not tied to you in any way. I went around and used up the $50 on multiple sites, knowing that after the 3 months the money was gone, and they couldn't charge a card W/O money on it. Took them a couple years to figure it out, and cut me off. Don't hate the player, hate the game. In undergrad, parking where you don't belong gets you a ticket. I always parked where I didn't belong, teacher and visitor lots especially, because everything else was taken, and these were right up close to my dorm/class. So unpaid tickets accumulate, and are then applied to your tuition balance, so that you must pay them before you can register for the next semester, or before you get your diploma, in the case of seniors. But as a member of the honors college, I was on 100% tuition scholarship, so these tickets were tacked on, and then wiped clear. They caught on about halfway through junior year, but by then I had literally wallpapered an entire wall of my room with over $2,000 worth of blue parking tickets. I think I still have a huge stack of them, and can edit this comment with a picture of them if there's interest. TL. Doctor, college parking tickets were added to my tuition, which was covered by scholarship, so I parked wherever the hell I wanted. For a while, when payphones were still a thing, there was the grand tradition of red boxing. Basically, recording or generating the internal tones that payphone made when you dropped a quarter in and playing them into the microphone when the payphone asked you to deposit money. That's been long gone for a while now, but a year or two ago, Google made it easy to make free calls again through their short-lived Google 411 service. Essentially, Google had an actually really useful 411 service where you would dial 1-800-GOOGY-411 and get an automated voice-activated directory service, and they would connect the call for you entirely free. What some people were doing was creating their own business by submitting a fake address with their real phone number to Google Maps. They would pick an obscure name that would be unlikely to be searched for. Google would call your number to confirm the address, and then you would simply go back to your fake listing and change the number to, say, a voice conference service or a long distance friend. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, you might have had to use one of those free VoIP call forwarding services too and get Google to point to that so you could change it. It's been a while. I still miss Google 411. Before the era of widespread smartphones, it was amazing to get a few instant Google services from any phone. At my university they have parking passes which scale in price depending on what time of day you use them. Most expensive is 24-hour and the rest scale down in price and level of most traffic to least. The parking garages are also open to the public at a daily rate. A lot of my friends bought the cheapest pass with the most constricting hours. I think it's only after 4 PM they can use them. So what they do is come in the morning and take a ticket as if they are going to use a daily rate. Then at the end of the day they swipe out with their garage pass. My sister and I were once given questionnaires at an aquarium where you had to scratch off the correct answers to questions that were hidden around the complex. If you got them all right, you won a prize. I figured that I could just scratch off all the answers on one sheet and then just do the correct answers on the other and hand that in. Perfect score. I used to be a member of New York Sports Club. It is a semi-expensive gym here. At the time, if you forgot your ID card you could just tell the person behind the desk your number. I always forgot. After a while I noticed I was transposing 2 numbers in my ID and they were still letting me in. I cancelled my membership and had free all-access gym membership for 3 years. My wife and I were at a super fancy restaurant in New York City. Reservations not allowed. Expect to wait. We get there and are told we would be waiting about 2 hours. No problem, we planned on this. Some guy right after us shook the reservation guy's hand handing him $200. Next thing I know I hear table for 2 for Thomas. Thomas being my name and I asked for a table of 2. I say that is me. They sit us and we ordered drinks and apps. 5 minutes later they say we are the wrong Thomas, but we could stay since we had already ordered. Guess who was the right Thomas? The guy who paid $200 to skip the line. Okay, where to start? My girlfriend runs a salon. One of her employees, we will call her Cassie, has a kid with a deadbeat guy. Cassie and her man friend are drug addicts and very irresponsible parents, and for all purposes bottom feeders. The baby is now just over 12 months or so, and is diagnosed with cancer. Cassie tells my girlfriend she can no longer work, because she wants time at home with her son, that she had never cared about before this. A week later, Cassie revisited the salon and brags about how the state of Ohio is paying her son's medical bills and she doesn't have to pay a dime. Cool deal, I guess. The plot thickens. She has the balls to ask my girlfriend in the same conversation to have a fundraiser for her child's medical bills because Cassie cannot afford them. My girlfriend is blown away by this, especially considering Cassie quit her job. She politely declines. Cassie leaves. A few days later, Cassie is on the local news with her deadbeat boyfriend sobbing about how she can't pay the medical bills and cannot find work. She asks people to donate to an account at a local bank. The money is rolling in at this point. Cassie appears later at the salon to get a full service cut and color, nails, and shows off the new clothes she had purchased, etc. And before we know it, her son and her crying mug are all over Facebook and the news. Car washes are being held, spaghetti dinners, donation bins at local businesses, you name it, all to pay for medical bills already being paid by the state of Ohio. A few months pass, and so does the child. Very sad indeed. The day after the funeral, Cassie posts on Facebook pictures of her out partying it up at a local club, and soon after there is a benefit dinner being held for Cassie to pay for funeral expenses, and she wants to start a charity for cancer research. Now, this is the short version of the story, but nonetheless, I've urged my girlfriend to report this to someone, but she hasn't out of fear of retaliation. It's too bad that people play on others' feelings and take advantage of the system like this. Felt good to vent.